You're probably wondering why someone would choose to speedrun Pokemon with Shiftry, considering it has terrible stats, doesn't even learn a grass move by level up, and is a 1% chance to even find in the grass. Well, it was all for money. Pokemon speedrun community member Shikaru is known for putting up bounties to see how far Pokemon speedrunners can push certain categories. He loves to focus on alt-main Pokemon runs, as these runs take an underutilized Pokemon and run them through to the rest of the game. Before this, Shikaru had put up a bounty for Ludicolo speedruns. While that route had come together really well, runner Keeping It Icy was far and away above everyone else in the end. Shiftry speedruns, however, were much different. The competition was closer than ever, going to the very last day to figure out who would come out on top, and 3 runners would establish themselves as the front runners for the grand prize of a $1,000 bounty: Amoeba UK, Exarian, and Keeping It Icy. The rules were simple. Whoever had the top 5 placing times for a speedrun of Shiftry alt main by the end of February 2024 would win a portion of the $1,000 pop bonus. Along the way, these runners would find some of the most mind-boggling strategies that would help Shiftry win in situations you would never think was possible. Some of these strats will blow your mind. No, literally. Let's get right into learning how a Shiftry speedrun works, and in order to do that, we will first need to learn how to RNG manipulate a wild encounter that gives us a C-Dot. There is also a trade you can do for C-Dot in Rustboro City, but its stats are really bad. By soft resetting the game, you can load the RNG down to the same seed every time. Knowing this, speedrunners can look through the code using programs like PokeFinder to find a C-Dot and which RNG frame it appears. They then have to load the game on a very specific timing, and if they execute perfect movement, they will be given a C-Dot encounter. And if you time the bag entry and throw the Pokeball perfectly, you can guarantee catch the C-Dot every time. And what makes the Shiftry speedrun bounty even more interesting was the fact that all of our top 3 runners were using a different C-Dot. Keeping It Icy was the first to find a C-Dot he was happy with. It had the highest possible attack, but it was pretty low in all of its other stats. Amoeba UK was next, who decided to go with a C-Dot that has solid stats around the board, but crucially had Hidden Power Electric. For you Pokemon fans who weren't around for the horrors of Hidden Power is a move that changes type based off the individual Pokemon stats. And while Icy Shiftry could have a useless Hidden Power type like Fire, Hidden Power Electric becomes a huge asset in the Winona and Wand fights in particular. If Amoeba UK is to win this competition, the Hidden Power Electric might just be the edge he could have in this race. And finally, Exarian C-Dot. It doesn't exist. Exarian decided he was going to run Manipless Shiftry speedruns, which if you forgot already, C-Dot is a 1% encounter, meaning that an overwhelming majority of Exarian's runs will die to not finding a C-Dot. But what are the benefits for Exarian? Well, because we saw how limited the stats are of the previous Shiftrys, if Exarian rolls the dice in Manipless, he could potentially get the best C-Dot, and if he executes well and gets good RNG, he will have by far the best time. Now, since this did happen over a year ago, most of the footage of early routes of this speedrun are gone. What we do have are the Discord logs of everyone sharing their times in the Gens 1 to 3 speedrunning Discord. Amoeba was the first to complete a run with a 3-hour 37-minute time, which he described as god-awful. He also said that based off this route, a sub 3-hour 10-minute time would be possible, meaning that as our times start to get faster and faster, the end goal is a time that is sub 3 hours and 10 minutes. Surely whoever gets that time first will win the top prize. Amoeba then set a 3-hour 25-minute time, which he said was close to getting a sub 320. The runs were quickly getting faster. Icy then set his first time with a 3-hour 35-minute run, but had a long way to go to catch up with Amoeba. But literally one day later, Icy shaved down his time a lot and showed us with footage to this day what a Shiftry speedrun truly looks like. Editor's note, while watching this back, I made it sound like Icy made up this entire route by himself. This route was the work of him, Amoeba, Roushmore, among others who were doing routing in the Gens 1 to 3 Discord. Okay, back to the video. Icy chooses Mudkip as his starter Pokemon and does Mudkip Manip just like any other Pokemon Emerald any % glitchless speedrun. And then once he gets the Pokeballs from Professor Birch, does C-Dot RNG Manip, which we talked about earlier. Then he enters the first fight with C-Dot. Most of Icy's early game strategy was to use switch training to level up his C-Dot. By putting C-Dot in the first slot and KOing the Pokemon with Mudkip, they can share the experience. C-Dot does this for the first 2 fights, Calvin and Aquapooch. And after the Aquapooch fight, Icy does something strange. He turns around. In this game, the twins on the bridge will fight you if you have 2 Pokemon in your party, so it is actually faster to turn around and deposit Mudkip into the PC since we no longer need it than to fight those twins on the bridge. And after all of that, he enters the first gym after teaching the Bullet Seed TM to C-Dot. C-Dot can KO every Geodude with 3 hits from Bullet Seed. And on Roxanne's Nose Pass, he just spams Bullet Seed while it goes for Harden like 4 times in a row. I don't know why it did that. Normally this fight is scary with the combination of Rock Tombs and Tackles, but Icy seems to get lucky here. After beating Roxanne, C-Dot evolves into Nuzleaf and Icy receives his first badge. After leaving the first gym, Icy gets the Devon goods, goes shopping in Rustboro City, picks up an assortment of berries, teaches Rock Tomb to Nuzleaf, gives the Devon goods to Steven in Granite Cave, skips the second gym because you can do that in this game, takes back Mudkip from the PC, and before leaving Dewford Town picks up the Silk Scarf. The Silk Scarf is an item that will come in handy later when Icy teaches his Shiftry strength. Icy, while on the beach, fights 2 Tentacruels for experience, which might seem like a tough matchup if not for the fact Nature Power turns into Earthquake while on the beach. Then Icy takes on Team Aqua in the museum and heads through Route 110 to take on a notorious Emerald Run killer, Rival 2. Icy needs to set up X attacks in order to be able to KO the Grovyle in this fight. The only problem is the lead Slugma on this team. This is why Nuzleaf was taught Rock Tomb. With the combination of Fake Out plus Rock Tomb, you can KO this slug without it even getting a turn. Although Icy did miss one Rock Tomb and Slugma put it to sleep. Nuzleaf does happen to have Early Bird, so Icy decides to set up anyways. Wingull, in the meantime, misses a few Supersonics while Icy wakes up and one-hit KOs the Wingull with Rock Tomb. Grovyle comes in next and Fury Cutters, threatening to KO on turn 2. But after lowering its speed with Rock Tomb on turn 1, Nuzleaf outspeeds and KOs it with Nature Power Swift on the next turn, conquering Rival 2. After that, Icy does more shopping in Mauville, teaches Rock Smash to Nuzleaf, grabs the Mach Bike, fights more trainers for experience before entering the third gym to take on Watson. And just like Rival 2, Icy needs to set up here with X items, but has another annoying Pokemon to get past, Voltorb. Voltorb is really fast, and the devs of Pokemon Emerald happen to give this thing self-destruct, a move that can wipe out Nuzleaf almost instantly. That's why Icy sets up 1 X Defend to help him survive against self-destruct. Unfortunately, Voltorb does not go for self-destruct here, and Icy gets paralyzed by Spark and has to burn the Cherry Berry he equipped before this fight. Since the X Defend has protected Icy from a KO here, he would prefer that it go for self-destruct and faint the Voltorb. Since he prefers that outcome, he continues to set up and hope Voltorb goes for SD. This way, he can set up 3X attacks on Electrike and KO it with Swift. In comes in Magneton, who is the reason we have Rock Smash. At +3, Rock Smash has a range to 3-hit KO the Magneton. Rock Smash also has a 30% chance to defense drop, which is actually bad if it happens on the very first turn. If Icy gets a defense drop on the first turn, Rock Smash will put the Magneton into heal range on turn 2. Ideally, you want to get a drop on turn 2 to guarantee the 3-hit KO. Icy gets 0 drops and misses the range, putting Magneton into heal range twice, which is very slow. Against Manectric, Icy got Thunder Wave into instant para, but after getting good rolls for the next few turns and a few super potions later, he wins the fight. On to the Maxi 1 split we go, which is mostly more shopping, more item grabbing, and lots of fun Mach Bike movement. Importantly though, Icy does catch a Swablu on Route 114, which will be his flyer later in the run. He also teaches Strength to Nuzleaf. And right before Icy was going to head up to Route 111 a second time, Icy does something special. He talks to this move tutor right here, which teaches freaking Rollout, baby. Rollout is a move that locks you into the move for 5 turns in a row, but every time it gets used without missing, it doubles in power. This is probably one of the coolest ideas that a speedrunner has ever come up with. The Maxi fight and the Flannery fight in particular have fire types that are hard for this literal leaf to deal with. It just so happens that this move is the best one for dealing damage here. And as Icy goes up the cable car and fights through the Team Magma grunts, we get to see Rollout in action for the very first time. First things first, involved in this maxi fight is sacrificing Mudkip in order to avoid Intimidate. Mudkip crucially gets off a guard spec before it gets KO'd. The guard spec puts up the Mist, which will protect Shiftry from Mighty and a Sand attack. Shiftry comes in and Icy sets up 1x attack and 1x accuracy, and Rollout curb stomps this entire team. Rollout made this fight look easy, but best believe me, that would not be the case for Flannery. If you know what Flannery's signature move is, you know this fight is going to be very hard for a Nuzleaf. That move being Overheat. Overheat is a 140 base power move that with same type attack bonus is effectively a 210 power move that deals super effective damage to Nuzleaf. This move will always KO Nuzleaf on all of Flannery's Pokemon, and even worse, all of her Pokemon know Sunny Day and can increase this atomic bomb of a move by 50% as well. But Overheat does have a drawback that Icy will take advantage of in this fight. Whenever Overheat is used, Overheat will drop the user's special attack by 2 stages, meaning it effectively halves its damage output with every use. This means we are going to sacrifice Mudkip again. By letting Mudkip take a hit like the Secret Service, Numel's special attack is cut in half, but it doesn't stop there. Swablu will also be sacrificed. By lowering Numel's special attack 3 times on Mudkip and Swablu, Nuzleaf no longer instantly dies to Overheat and can set up. Just avoid a crit, lol. Icy does have to be careful, because even though this Numel isn't KOing at 100% health, if it sets up the sun, it is doing a max of 62 damage with Overheat. Icy manages to set up 3x attacks and 1x accuracy while healing to make sure it doesn't die. Icy then locks into Rollout. It does 2 stages on Numel before guaranteeing the KO on Camerupt in stage 3. Very importantly, if Nuzleaf were to KO Numel with a crit on turn 1, Camerupt will not die at stage 2 and likely KO Nuzleaf back. The only way to salvage that would be if Camerupt missed Overheat or also critting the Camerupt on the next turn, which would actually be the fastest fight possible. But for all intent and purpose, we do not want to see a crit on Numel in this fight. And if you don't, Slugma and Torkoal go down with ease. It is amazing the routing work put into this run to be able to take this little leaf with terrible stats and have it beat Flannery, a trainer who completely counters it. Now that we're done with Flannery, it's time to head back to Dewford Town to fight Brawly. But before that, Icy makes a pit stop in the desert to grab a protein and a rare candy. Oh, and he starts to fight Ruined Maniac Dusty, why? And he's losing? This is all on purpose. Let me tell you about death warping in Gen 3 Pokemon games. Remember when I told you in Dewford Town, Icy was getting his Mudkip back from the PC? Well, he did that not only to get his Mudkip, but also to set his warp point to this Pokemon Center. By losing to Dusty, Icy will respawn in Dewford Town, skipping all the movement to get back there. Time to take on Brawly, who is actually very simple. Icy can just strength 3 times since Nuzleaf is way over leveled at this point. Once Icy's done with Brawly, he takes the boat back to Petalburg to take on Norman's Gym. Norman's Gym is notorious for being the hardest gym in the game. Not only is the Norman fight one of the hardest to deal with, but every single individual trainer that you have to fight in this gym can end your run. Icy first heads into the accuracy room, facing a Delcatty which knows Shockwave and Feint Attack, both moves that Nuzleaf resists. So piece of cake, right? Wrong. This Delcatty also has the ability Cute Charm. Cute Charm can infatuate Nuzleaf if it makes contact, and since Icy uses strength, if Cute Charm procs it could get dangerous. But that did not happen on this run. On to the recovery room, where Icy makes light work of the Slack Off with Fake Out into X Attack on a Loaf into Strength. On to the one-hit KO room. This room features a Vigoroth who spams Slash. Slash is a move with an increased crit rate, making the normal 1 in 16 chance to crit a 1 in 8. It also has access to Focus Energy, which can change that 1 in 8 chance into a 1 in 4 chance. And on top of that, this Vigoroth always outspeeds Nuzleaf and always gets 3 turns to attack. It can also hit a range to 2-hit KO this Nuzleaf, meaning if it gets a crit on the first turn, it could 1-hit KO with a high roll. This is why Icy saves here, as he is 1 crit away from fainting. The strat for Icy is Rock Smash turn 1. If it drops, you can 2-hit KO with Strength. If not, you can go for a 3-hit KO with Strength. Icy unfortunately does get crit on turn 2 of this fight, but got a drop on Vigoroth. So after dying, he revival herbs himself and finishes off the Vigoroth with Strength 2 times. Not the perfect fight, but really clean considering the circumstances. After leveling up to 31, Icy teaches Feint Attack over Fake Out and heads into the final room. On to the Norman fight. In the Norman fight, Icy has to set up 6 turns on the Spinda. 1x speed, 1x defend, and 4x attack. attacks. All of this to survive hits and KO the slacking on Norman's team. But before he can move on to the next Pokemon, he has to survive being heel looped by Spinda. Spinda is kind of dumb. It continues to use the move Teeter Dance, a move which confuses the opponent regardless of if the opponent is already confused or not. This is actually really good on the turns that we are setting up since we take no damage. It's also really bad on the turns we need to heal confusion. I have seen this Spinda rob speedrunners of all their heal powders, forcing them to risk confusion and losing a lot of time. This happens to Icy a few times, but eventually gets through. In comes in the Slaking. Slaking is usually the last Pokemon to come out here, but since it has counter, it comes out first. The strat for Slaking is a convoluted one. On turn 1, you Rock Smash. If you get a defense drop, you can 2-hit KO the Slaking with Strength. If you do not get a defense drop, you Rock Smash again, hoping to get another defense drop. If no defense drop after 2 turns, you have to go for Strength into Strength, forcing you into a slow fight and also having to heal. But thankfully, Icy gets a defense drop on turn 1, getting rid of the Slaking. In comes in Vigoroth. After healing on turn 1, Icy goes for a Strength range, which he misses. So on heal, he goes for Feint Attack into Strength, guaranteeing the KO. And then Lanoon comes in to be felled instantly. It was now time for Icy to head towards the Weather Institute, but before he does that, he grabs 2 rare candies, one in Petalburg and one on Route 110. Now it's time to go back to Mauville City and head to Route 118. Where is he going? The Trainer Hill? Am I being trolled? What is that? There's a shop in here? This was genuinely my reaction the first time I watched a Shiftry run live to find out that Trainer Hill has a shop in it. It's actually one of the few places in the game which sells X specials. Since all of Shiftry's stab moves are special in this game, Icy is going to need a lot of those for the late game. After that pit stop, Icy heads to the Weather Institute, beats Shelly, and goes down the river on Route 119 to grab the Leaf Stone. This is where Nuzleaf will finally evolve into Shiftry right in time for the Rival 3 fight. This fight is pretty simple. Strength KO Slugma, and on Pelipper you set up 1 X attack. Pelipper is busy protecting, and on turns it does not protect, you just 2-hit KO him. And finally, Grovyle dies to Strength at +1 as well. Icy does a few things leading up to the Winona fight. First he teaches Fly to Swablu, then he teaches Facade to Castform and grabs the Devon Scope from Steven. Then he heads into Winona's gym. This one was going to be really tough for Shiftry due to the fact that the flying type trainers deal massive damage to Shiftry, and there are a few mandatory battles before the Winona fight. Winona's gym starts off with a double battle where Shiftry and Castform will be used as a duo. This also explains why Castform was taught Facade, as it is a stab normal move which Castform could use to help out in these fights. Shiftry is going to need a lot of help in these fights as it is being targeted down by 2 flying types. Unfortunately for Icy, Castform dies to a Doduo Tri-Attack double, so it's not going to be much help in this fight, making this fight extremely slow in the process. After this double battle, Icy takes on Darius, whose Tropius knows no flying moves thankfully, and then finally it was time for Winona. Winona's lead of Swablu is infamous for being frustrating for Pokemon Emerald speedrunners. It's down to Perish Song, a move that will force Shiftry to switch out and lose its X attack boost from turn 1. Icy does not get Perish Song though, and can freely set up his X attack and KO Swablu. Next comes in Pelipper, who loves using Protect. And if you thought we were done with Rollout, you were sadly mistaken. Once Icy is done setting up, Icy uses Rollout, which KOs Pelipper, then Tropius, then Altaria all in one shot. Skarmory comes out last, which is really important here. By the time Skarmory comes out, Stage 4 Rollout is too much for it and Winona is turned to dust. If it came out on any other turn, it might have lived, ruining the Rollout strat. Thank you, Pokemon Emerald Switch AI. 6 badges down, 2 to go. We're at the point in the run where Icy has to do a bunch of plot to go further. First it's Mount Pyre and then Magma Hideout, where Icy has to fight the second Maxi fight. Icy is going to use a strat in this fight to take advantage of Mightyana's swagger. By equipping a Persimberry before the fight, we can play around swagger. And if Icy already has set up his X speed and X accuracy when it swaggers him, he can skip having to set up an X attack and use the attack boost from swagger to go. Icy, however, however, does not get swagger, so he has to set up an X attack. After that, he crits Mightyena on turn 2, which saves 1 turn, and rollout sweeps the rest of Maxie's team. After going to Slateport for the submarine cutscene, Icy flies back to Lily Cove. In Lily Cove, he actually uses the move deleter to get rid of Rock Smash. I never thought I would see the day the move deleter was used in a speedrun, but here we are. He once again uses rollout on Matt and then heads to Tate and Liza's gym. Tate and Liza is probably the hardest fight in the game, and despite that, Shiftry actually does pretty well here. By baiting KOs on the right side, Shiftry is allowed to set up 2 turns of X specials here. The only scary thing would be if Claydol went for Ancient Power and got a boost. Luckily, that doesn't happen. And by targeting the left slot, you one-hit KO everything while Claydol is busy using a resisted Earthquake on the right. Giga Drain on the Claydol to recover some HP, and Tate and Liza is over with. Now onto the real hardest double battle in the run. True Double. Icy says,
Alright, so this fight might be the most complex fight I've ever had to route ever. Most complex fight in any, routing. I went through 5 different variations of what I wanted to do for True Double.
the strat for Icy is guard spec turn 1, X attack 2 times, and then pray that Metang uses moves to help win the fight. A key part of getting a good fight is to get the second Mightyena to come in before the guard spec wears off. That way, the Intimidate is blocked by the guard spec. Crobat is also a huge problem in this fight. Its wing attacks can do so much damage that you essentially get heal looped, and if that happens, you just have to hope and pray Metang on the other side goes for Psychic on the Crobat. But after all the healing and praying, Icy wins this fight first try. On to Archie 1. Icy set up on Archie is 1 guard spec and 3 X specials. Giga Drain KOs the Mightyena, and despite getting crit by Crobat, Icy KOs it with 2 feint attacks. This is all possible due to the fact that Archie still has super potions at this point in the game. Sharpedo comes in next, who is made swift work of with Giga Drain, meaning Icy wins the Archie fight. Normally, this is the point where Icy would have to wake up Rayquaza and save the day, but he's got some errands to run in the meantime. Yup, it's finally time to teach Explosion to Shiftry. Salutes in chat for rollout, which has been a huge help in this run so far. Icy also grabs a rare candy on Route 132 as well. After that, Icy does the story, heads into Juan's gym, does the ice puzzle, and gets ready to fight against Juan. The Juan fight is a strange one because it makes Luvdisc look like one of the strongest Pokemon you can come up against. All of its moves are bad to see here, except for Flail, which it never uses at full HP. Attract will make you infatuated, making it a 50% chance to use your move. Sweet Kiss will confuse you with 75% accuracy, and Water Pulse will deal non-insignificant chip damage while also having a confusion chance itself. Despite having Persian Berries equipped, if Icy gets confused more than once, he could have to heal it off again. Icy sets up 1x speed and 2x specials, but by the time he does all of that, he is confused and infatuated. After getting and healing confusion 2 more times and getting immobilized by Love once, Icy finally breaks through after having to heal with a Hyper Potion. Icy could have made this fight a bit easier by RNG manipulating a female Shiftry, but alas, he did not and paid the price. After KOing the Luvdisc, the fight is not over yet. Kingdra has the move Double Team, and Icy cannot one-hit KO it. He'll have to risk his run to Double Team shenanigans, but lucky for him, he gets through. And after Icy is done with Kingdra, everything else in his path is KO'd. Icy receives the final Hoenn Gym Badge. It is time for Victory Road. But before heading there, Icy will grab the Brick Break TM, and upon entering Victory Road, his first challenge of this cave is Wally. Wally starts off with a bang, with Shiftry going for Explosion. The reason Icy goes for Explosion here is because Altaria knows Dragon Dance, and if Icy sets up on Altaria, Altaria can set up with Dragon Dance. Explosion is the only move that Shiftry has access to, which will one-hit KO the Altaria and prevent Dragon Dance. One revive later, and Shiftry comes in on Magneton, a perfect Pokemon to set up on, if not for the paralysis chances. All Icy needs is 1x attack here, and he can one-hit KO Magneton, Roselia, and Delcatty. Gardevoir's only attacking move here is Psychic, so Shiftry simply just has to feint attack 2 times to get rid of Gardevoir without a problem. Now for the rest of Victory Road, literally all of these individual fights can suck really bad, but I'm not gonna go into much detail on them. All you need to to know is that with bad RNG, you could lose your run or have a massive time loss. Oh, and we need to tick the explosion counter one more time as Icy goes for it on this Tropius. Icy finally enters the Pokemon League, ready to challenge the Elite Four. Before this fight, Icy swaps Swablu to slot 1. This way on Sydney, he can set up Guard Spec on turn 1 and also avoid Intimidate from Mightyena. All Icy has to do is set up to +1 with Shiftry, and Brick Break cleans up this entire fight with ease. On the final Pokemon, Icy decides not to go for a Brick Break range on Crota and instead strengths 2 times. Now it's Phoebe time. In the Phoebe fight, this first Dusclops loves using Protect, which Icy can use to his advantage. By X-specialing 4 times in a row, while Dusclops wastes time using Protect, Icy can easily KO Phoebe's entire team with Feint Attack. On to Glacia. Glacia is probably one of, if not the biggest run killer of this run. Glacia has Ice-type Pokemon which at any point can threaten KOs to Shiftry. Icy equips an Oranberry before this fight because he needs any help he can get. Icy needs to set up 3 X attacks here and survive 2 Ice Balls plus the damage from the Hail Celio sets up. If after both Ice Balls Icy is at 11 or more HP, he can go. The reason for Oranberry is apparent here as it saves him from dying to Hail after he KOs the Celio. Unfortunately for Icy, he gets hit below 11 HP twice in a row, forcing him to reset. On the 3rd try, Icy sets up his 3x attacks, lives on literally 1 HP, and then heals from Oranberry, saving him from the next chip of Hail. Brick Break then one-hit KOs Glacia's entire team from here. The only way to die from here on out is if Walrein lives a 15 and 16 range to die here, but since it didn't, Icy moves on to Drake. Now you're probably wondering why there is seemingly 20 minutes of time loss for Drake here. Well, the old strat Icy used was not optimal here and it lost him a lot of time. Now with the reroute, Icy says the odds of winning this fight are much better now. Icy's new strat is kinda bonkers. Before, he just set up until the Guard Spec wore off, making ranges kind of bad. This time he Guard Specs on turn 1 to get around the potential Rock Tombs from Shelgon, does 4x attacks, and then sets up a second Guard Spec, which is honestly so creative to be able to set up to +6 and +1 speed so that he can outspeed and one-hit KO everything. But wait, a 3rd Guard Spec has hit the Drake fight. Because Salamence can intimidate, using a Guard Spec on Altaria is safe because Icy still outspeeds after a Dragon Dance. So Icy can keep his +6 and sweep Drake, saving 16 minutes compared to his personal best. He was now 9 minutes ahead of the current world record by Amoeba UK. The champion was still in the way of world record, but Icy was going to make Wallace look like a walk in the park. Against Wallace, Icy explodes against Wailord, and when Ludicolo comes in, Icy uses a max revive as it KOs Icy's poor little Mudkip. Icy Brick Breaks turn 1. This way he can manipulate the AI to not spam double team after turn 1. Icy needs to go to +5, and since Ludicolo only knows grass and water moves, this is an easy mon to set up on. He just needs to heal whenever Ludicolo brings him down to red HP. After setting up 5x attacks, Icy outspeeds and KOs everything, and explodes on Gyarados for good measure. Icy just became the fastest player to beat Shiftry speedruns at a whopping 3 hours, 15 minutes, and 38 seconds. Pokemon speedrunners were now just under 6 minutes away from the coveted sub 3 hour and 10 minute time that the players were striving for. Everyone was trying their best to beat this time. Roushmore had a 3:18, Amoeba had a 3:17, and Chippy Toothy had a 3:16, but no one could get over the hump. A lot of routing was still happening to optimize the spots where Icy could gain some ground as well, and also looking at places to improve their own routes. Amoeba even created an entirely new Meryl manip that he could use to change his route to Torchic. The reason Torchic was starting to gain popularity was because it made the rival fights a little bit easier. Rival 2 would have to fight a Marshtomp instead of a Grovyle, and in the Rival 3 fight you no longer have to go up against Pelipper and waste turns to it using Protect. But despite the route improvements, 9 days after Icy's PB with only 4 days to go in the bounty, no one had a better time. It was looking like Icy's 3:15 might just stand. But a familiar face popped his head into the Discord channel for the first time. Exarian was asking about manips, trying to figure out which manip was the best, After a short conversation, everyone stopped talking, and we wouldn't know it at the time, but Exarion went into hibernation to route a manipless version of Shiftry Ultimate. But there was not a lot of time. It was now February 25th, and while the competition had closed the gap, Icy was still in the lead. But just one day later, February 26, 2024, Amoeba got on a good run. It started with a good Roxanne time, 48 seconds ahead of Icy's PB, but this run was not stopping anytime soon. Gold split after gold split after gold split in the early game. This run was moving, only bleeding a little time in the late game due to Winona. But if you account for the fact he had to grab and teach the hidden power TM, this time loss was sort of expected. On this pace going into the late game, Amoeba was looking well on his way to a sub 3:10 minute time. Amoeba got another gold split on the Tate and Liza split, and since he had a special attack oriented Shiftry, saved a ton of time on Icy's true double fight. He also had an Archie fight that went perfect. Amoeba was going into the wand fight about to gain a huge amount of time on Icy and was already 2 minutes ahead of him. And since he had a female Shiftry, he didn't even need to worry about a track tier. With a perfect wand fight, Amoeba obtains the last badge of the Hoenn region 5 minutes and 17 seconds ahead of Icy's PB and 7 minutes and 27 seconds ahead of his own. This is the first time any runner would be on sub 3:10 pace heading into Victory Road. It looked almost inevitable, but the thing about Pokemon speedruns is nothing ever goes as expected. Amoeba had one of the worst Victory Roads possible. It started with a missed range on Wally's Roselia, but that was only the beginning. What really hurt the most was Amoeba's absolutely terrible Cool Trainer Julie fight. Like I said earlier, the Victory Road fights can downright kill your run. And while that's not what happened here, it still completely killed his pace. Amoeba got confused on this Ninetales into a burn. Then on Tropius, he missed the range of Feint Attack into Hidden Power, and because he could not use Feint Attack anymore because of PowerPoint restrictions, Amoeba was forced to Hidden Power 3 times to KO this Tropius after Julie healed it up with a Hyper Potion. Before that third Hidden Power, Tropius gets a paralysis off, making Amoeba waste even more time to having to heal it out of battle. Fortunately enough for Amoeba, he saves a little bit of time with a crit on the Cacturn fight right before he is able to reset his mental going into the Elite Four. While this Victory Road lost Amoeba around 1 minute and 30 seconds of time, on most runs that would be a devastating amount of time loss to deal with, but this is still an amazing run. He was 5 minutes ahead of Icy before Victory Road, meaning he was still miles ahead right now. This was still the best run of Shiftry we have ever seen. Amoeba would have to get a perfect Elite Four to have a chance to sub 310. It was time to see what this Elite Four had in store. Amoeba had not one, but 2 deaths on Glacia. It felt like this run was doomed to not finish below the 310 mark, but it was not over yet. While sub 310 was no longer possible, he actually gained time against Icy due to the fact that he had 2 deaths there as well. Amoeba just had 2 more fights to go. He was on the verge of a Shiftry world record. Amoeba finished with a 3 hour, 10 minute, and 48 second time, the best time we have seen in Shiftry yet. There were only 4 days left in the event, meaning that the competition would not have a lot of time to be able to top this time. But the competition was not stopping, and just 2 days later, 2 days before the deadline, Keeping It Icy got a 3:11:53. And later that same day, a familiar face was finished routing and was ready to come out of hibernation. During this stream, Exarion would finish his first ever Shiftry speedrun, a run which showcased the potential of a manipulous Shiftry speedrun, and we started to see the future of Shiftry speedruns in real time. This route was the future of Shiftry speedrunning. Exarion's run would bleed a lot of time in the early game. Part of the reason for that was the fact he was not using RNG Manipulation to find his Shiftry. Just as a reminder, this is a 1% chance encounter to find in the grass. The hunt for C-Dot would be alleviated by the fact that Exarion would also be catching a Zigzagoon here. Zigzagoon will be used for HMs like Surf, Rock Smash, and even the optional HM Cut. He gets a Zigzagoon on his second encounter, and on his fifth encounter gets his C-Dot. Exarian immediately deposits his C-Dot into the PC, as he did not need to switch train his C-Dot in the Aqua Pooch fight, and also does not want to fight these twins on the bridge. Exarian grabs the Cut HM and his C-Dot from the PC before entering Roxanne's gym. Now this is where I will explain how Manipulous speedruns work. Manipulous Pokemon speedruns require you to input your Pokemon stats into an IV calculator as the run goes on. When Exarian first got his C-Dot, he took a moment to check his stats and input them into this calculator. You can see what IVs the C-Dot has at level 3 based off the calculator on the bottom of Exarian's screen. And every subsequent fight, you might notice he is not instantly mashing through text on level up like every other person in the world. He stops to read the stats briefly and puts them in his calculator. This way he can know the exact stats as it narrows down the IVs of the C-Dot to one stat. This is a crucial way to play Manipulous speedruns. Exarian likely did a lot of routing with a calculator before the run, so he knows how much offensive, defensive, and speed stats he will need to be able to pull off certain strats, and if he does not have good enough stats, he might have to reset or play fights more conservative. Although Roxanne would not be one of those fights. He will just be spamming Bullet Seed like the rest of the runners did. After Roxanne's gym, Exarian takes some detours that no other runner did in this split. Spoiler alert, he's gonna do that a lot over the entire run. The first of those being fighting this hiker and this fisherman for more experience. The more experience he has, the more levels he gains, which makes certain fights easier. After beefing up his Nuzleaf, Exarian has an incredible Rival 2 fight, and after Rival 2, fights another optional trainer. And another one up here. Exarian goes into the Trainer Hill here. Instead of shopping at the Mart in Mauville, he decides to take a detour to Trainer Hill. Not only can he buy the items he will need for the upcoming fights, but there is also a PC in here, which he will use to heal his Pokemon. It is crucial that Exarian does not enter a Pokemon Center because he needs to keep his Warp Point in Dewford Town, that way he can Poison Warp later in the run. Trainer Hill does not change your Warp Point, meaning Exarian can use this as a pseudo Pokemon Center with no punishment. Oh, and if you thought Exarian was done fighting optional trainers, you were dead wrong, as he fights one more optional trainer in Watson's gym. This one gets my approval because it uses Rollout to KO these bugs, and I love Rollout. Then Exarian beats Watson with ease and starts the Maxi 1 split. On the Maxi 1 split, Exarian does mostly normal things, grabbing items, doing shopping, fighting two more optional trainers, you know, the usual. You can definitely tell Exarian is a little bit rusty on the Mach Bike, but that's to be expected with how tough Mach Bike movement is. Everyone shut up! Shut up! Look, Exarian got a camper hiking up the mountain. He got a freaking camper! Yes, dude, there's like a 1 in 64 chance for that to happen. This run is awesome! You may be wondering why Exarian is bleeding so much time in the early game to fighting optional trainers for experience. If you've been counting, that's 7 fights so far. Well, Exarian is doing a strategy that he believes gives him the best chance of winning in the late game. By making your Shiftry even stronger by taking time to train it more in the early game, it can have an even faster and more consistent late game. And Exarian was finally done with optional trainers. Exarian beats Maxi, Flannery, Death Warps back to Dewford Town to beat Brawly, and beats Norman's gym with ease. He was still about 2 minutes behind where Amoeba was at this point in the run, but like I said, this was expected to happen. And as he entered the mid game, Exarian started to close the gap on Amoeba. But he was not done with detours. Instead of optional trainers, this time he was on the hunt for rare candies. This is why he taught his Zigzagoon Cut, to get rare candies on Route 121 and on Route 123. He wouldn't use these rare candies just yet. He was waiting for the perfect moment, and after the Winona split, Exarian was now only 3 seconds behind Amoeba. He closed that gap quickly with better routing for this section of the run. One of the optimizations Exarian made in his Winona fight was to use Fake Out for this fight. This way he could play around Perish Song from Swablu with Fake Out into Strength. However, this run took some stumbles on the Maxi 2 split. The first stumble was based off of a misplay by Exarian. He was one wild encounter away from level 39. After his repel wore off, he purposely encountered this wild failed Geodude so that he could get to level 39. This was so he could get the most optimal timing for a rare candy. Well, not just one, but the 6 he had been piling up together to get to level 45 for the Maxi-Toot fight. This was 3 levels higher than Amiibo was at this point, but in doing this, he forgot to repel after the first Geodude, getting a useless encounter and losing time. So instead of being 3 seconds behind like he was against Winona, he was roughly 37 seconds behind, and Exarion's luck continued to get worse, as he gets 2 encounters on Route 108 on a detour to get another rare candy, when on average you would expect only 1 encounter. Exarion would be expected to be ahead of Amiibo by now, but because of bad luck, after the true double section, he was behind about 15 seconds, and it continued to get even worse. Exarion needs a tentacle here to teach Dive and Waterfall to. It is a 60% encounter in the water. Exarion is expecting to get this at least second try, but Exarion doesn't get a tentacle until his 4th encounter.
That's it, dude. I just do not get record now.
But I think Exarion himself underestimates his superior routing and how awful Amiibo's endgame splits truly are. Exarion was now 1 minute and 45 seconds behind Amiibo after the wand split. But there was hope for Exarion. After doing his last T-Tour where he flies back to Falarbor to go up a waterfall to get a rare candy, lunatic strap by the way, Exarion was done with detours. He had everything he needed to finish this run, and with good RNG he could definitely get the world record. He could even get the coveted sub 310 that everyone had been chasing. After Glacia, Exarion went from being 1 minute behind Amiibo to 1 minute faster. This was it, the sub 310. Drake gets felled quickly, and Exarion makes light work of the champion because he taught Aerial Ace to his Shiftry, ruling out any possibility for a miss on double team. And after all was said and done, Exarion finished with a 3 hour, 9 minute and 1 second time. An incredible time, especially considering this was the only run he ever completed of this category. Exarion posted his splits after midnight on the final day. There was less than 24 hours left to beat him. Every single runner came to play on the final day. Amiibo, Mockwing, Icy, Rauschmer, all of these amazing Pokemon speedrunners would start up runs on the final day, but only one of them would finish a run on the final day, and who other than keeping it Icy. But he had an incredible run to beat in his way. Can he do it? Icy started off with an incredible pace, getting a gold split on both his Rock, Sand, and Rival 2 splits. Going into Watson's gym, Icy was 1 minute and 40 seconds ahead of his PB and also 4 minutes and 20 seconds ahead of Exarion. But then disaster struck. Icy had one of the worst possible Watson fights, and it was looking like the possibility of beating Exarion's time was out of reach. But this run would just not give up.
Oh, I think I lost because I crit Numal. Oh my god!
Icy was saving time on his personal best left and right, and even though he got Perish Song from Winona, he was still 1 minute and 40 seconds ahead of Exarion past the Maxi-Toot split. But he had to compete with Exarion's late game. Was this lead really strong enough to hold until the end of the run? And while Icy saved a lot of time in comparison to his PB on Tate and Liza, Exarion cut the lead down to just 1 minute and 5 seconds. But that was just the beginning. Icy's true double fight was incredibly slow, and while he could have been saving time to Exarion's 3 encounters here, he ended up losing some time. Exarion's time was now closer than it had ever been to catching up to Icy, 28 seconds. Icy needed the wand fight to go amazing.
I have to dodge, attract, and confusion again. Unlucky. This fight's so ass with male Shiftry. Hello? The fast fight is if you don't get attract, you just go and set up on Celio, and it's fine. I just lost like 40 seconds there.
After a bad wand fight, Icy's morale had never been lower, and because of this, Icy made a mistake by flying to Moss Deep before teaching Brick Break.
Wait, I'm stupid. I have down. Oh my god, I might be stupid. You good? Oh.
And even though he gains a little bit of ground due to the fact Exarian grabs a rare candy here, it was almost inevitable that Exarian would get that time back. Because Icy knew Exarian's run had a much stronger late game than Icy, Icy was already thinking about starting a new run, counting himself out.
Yeah, I don't think I can beat record. I can still 309, but I don't think I can record. I definitely want to do another run, because how much time do I have? Do I have more time? I like so out of it right now.
Was this it for Icy? Could he even mathematically beat Exarian at this point? Icy was down in the dumps, and there were only a few things that Icy could save time on. Getting a better Cool Trainer Julie fight, going for riskier strats on Wallace, and not saving for Glacia like Exarian does. If it all goes well, Icy will be crowned the champion of this challenge. Or he could play it safe, reset, and try getting on a better run later. Icy decides he's going all in on the record, and boy, it was going to be close. The Cool Trainer Julie fight went perfectly, so Icy was now 18 seconds ahead of Exarian going into the Elite Four. Was it really possible? After Sydney, he was even 30 seconds ahead. It was looking more doable by the second. Still ahead after Phoebe, it all came down to Glacia. If he can beat Glacia in a reasonable time, it was doable.
It all comes down to this. It all comes down to this. 6 and 16 to just lose the run. 1, 2. Okay. That should be fine. How can I make this fight even worse? Have a range on wall rain. 15 and 16. 15 and 16 to survive on wall rain. Yes! Okay, Glacia down. 2 more left to go.
After Glacia, Icy was still 10 seconds ahead of Exarian. Then after Drake, Icy was now only 2 seconds ahead of Exarian. It was time to crown our champion. Icy explodes on Wallace's Wailord when something unexpected happens.
No! Not the crit! Oh my god.
A useless critical hit, which was exactly 2 seconds of time loss. Icy now needed a new way to catch up to Exarian.
You know what? I will go for a 75%. Fuck it. It's like in my... I have to. It's literally Mega Kick.
By only setting up 5 X attacks instead of 6, Icy risks a 25% chance his run dies to missing a range on Wish Cache. If Icy misses this range, Exarian would be crowned the champion.
Come on. 75%. 75! Come on. Yes!
A critical hit for good measure to guarantee the range, and this time the text box wouldn't matter.
Oh my god! That came down to the fucking wire, dude! Oh my god! Oh my god, that came down so fucking close!
And with that, the champion was crowned. The bounties were handed out, and the players went back to their normal streams. The category has not been played since. This does not mean it doesn't hold any meaning anymore. Shiftry speedruns were a way to show people a cool and unique way of playing Pokemon, the likes of which we will never see again. And hopefully through this video, more people are inspired to take a chance and try their own very special run of Pokemon. Whether that be a challenge run to beat a Pokemon with your favorite, or a speedrun with an incredibly bad Pokemon. However you decide to play Pokemon is yours to choose.